So this is really going to be for a video for people who are trying to come to Korea on a long-term visa, particularly the E2 visa, which is the one I'm on right now. And it's going to answer questions about what it took for me to get here, and then also the quarantine experience. This is day 7 for me. This is day 7. So my last day I leave is on I think I could leave the apartment on the 13th. So first I want to go over what it actually took for me to come here. So I had to first find a job. So that's what I did. I found a teaching job here, and then the contract was sent to me. I went through the recruiter actually, and the contract was sent to the recruiter to me. In order for me to come here, I had to get the documents for the E2 visa, and that was the no rise not possible diploma, recommendations, no rise not possible apostle, FBI criminal record check. For me, it's a bit different because I lived in Korea from 2009 to 2019, and actually I called immigration and they had all my documents already. The only thing I had to do was get an updated FBI criminal record check, so I had to be within 6 months. That's really all I needed. And so after I got the contract from the recruiter, I signed the contract, sent it back to them, and I had to mail these documents with the signed contract, to the recruiter, to school, the Hagwon. And it was then that they applied for a E2 visa. That took about maybe 10 days for them to apply for it, and they sent me the E2 confirmation number. And after that, I went to the Korean embassy in Taipei, and I gave them the confirmation number. And it took exactly 2 weeks for them to finally give me the E2 visa, and that allowed me to actually move from Taiwan to Korea. I was actually quite worried about leaving Taiwan because when I was thinking about leaving Taiwan, there was a pretty big COVID surge, and I was concerned because a lot of flights are constantly getting canceled, or they're being rerouted or changed and things like this. And so I went with a discount airline. It's a Singaporean discount airline called Scoot, which flies off Taiwan. And even though the way I did it ended up being only slightly cheaper than the second option, which I believe was probably Asiana, was probably the next price. But still, it was the cheapest option for me, and that's what I was going for. Because I had like 2 bags, and the way these discount airlines work, they work much better if you have very limited bags. If you have more than like 20 kilograms, then it's going to be much more expensive. But Scoot, if you look at Scoot, the reviews are actually, I think they have mostly 3 stars, 2.5 stars. But I thought the airline was fine. You know, I got my ticket for August 1st. And a week before I was supposed to fly, they did change it to July 30th. They say it's because of different COVID restrictions and situations going on in the countries. And that's understandable because honestly, when I took the plane, it was only like 20% full. And so I wouldn't guess they were just trying to put people to fill up a plane as much as possible. I was in, I guess, what's considered the business class. And it was completely empty. It was like maybe 10 rows. And then maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It was maybe 30 seats of that section, and I was in there by myself. It was completely empty, and then there were people in the back. It was mostly an empty flight, so I'm guessing that's also part of the reason why they moved my ticket from August 1st, which was my guide, to July 30th. But they were on time, and we got there in like an hour and 50 minutes, and there was really no problem with it. So I didn't have a bad experience with Scoot. I thought Scoot worked out pretty well. If everyone else wants to consider it, again, my experience with Scoot was fine, except for the fact that they changed my ticket. But again, the plane was almost empty. As I mentioned in previous videos, I looked at a lot of YouTube videos and then went online to the government website for Korean immigration and the Korean embassy to figure out what the quarantine situation would be like, because I was never sure how it was going to go. There's not a lot of written information online, and when I looked at Korean videos of people who are coming to Korea going to quarantine, there's not a lot of information in Korean either. There's definitely not a lot in English, but there's also not a lot in Korean. And I suppose the reason why is because the situation is so in flux. And so they don't really want people to think one thing, and then by the time they get there, it's actually changed a lot. I think they just want you to they want to be as up to date as possible. And the way they do that is just kind of keep it vague and just tell people to be as prepared as possible for different situations that may arise. And so I was never sure with my E2 visa, long-term visa, if I was going to stay in quarantine or not, because I was really sure about the my living situation once I got here. My job actually did get the apartment before I came, and so I had the address and I had the lease agreement that I could show the customs at the airport. And I came here because the Scoot changed my flight from 2 days, from August 1st, which is when the apartment was available. They changed it to July 30th. There was a bit of an issue there. So I got Airbnb. And the Airbnb was for quarantine approved, I suppose. And so I went to Airbnb, got an apartment. Went to the airport. It took probably about 40 minutes in the customs. I will tell people now that when you get off the plane, get all your papers ready in hand, because you have to go through maybe, I think it was like 5 or 6 different people who they take your papers, they give you new papers, you have to sign something, they stamp it, and then so you have to do this like 4 or 5 different people. But I have it in hand. I didn't have it in hand, and that was like first, and so it was a bit of I was holding up other people. I would advise you to have it in hand when you get to that first person. I think the first thing they want is the COVID test to show that you're negative. I think that's the first thing you should have in hand, and that's what you give them. And they put a stamp on your passport that says PCR test, I guess positive or not negative or whatever, not COVID. And then you go from there to different people. When the last guy that I went to was the one who was, I guess, trying to see if I could end up going to government quarantine or going to individual quarantine. So it took about 40 minutes, and the guy was actually pretty cool. He did have to make contact with either the recruiter or the owner, the manager of my school, which he eventually did. That took a bit of time. And then after they talked, I was allowed to leave. And so they put an app on your, for me it's my iPad. I don't really have a phone right now, or an iPhone that works very well. So it's on my iPad. You're supposed to check in 2 to 3 times a day. You can say 3 times, and then later on they say 2. So I think it's like 2 to 3 times. And they give you a thermometer. I got the thermometer like maybe 2 days later, but you're supposed to take your temperature. You have to sign a paper saying that you're going to remain in quarantine. There's pretty stiff penalties actually. So it's a good encouragement to keep people in quarantine when they do an individual quarantine. One of the really cool things is that when I was at the Airbnb, they bought 2 days worth of food. The city government brings you 2 days worth of food. And it's basically ramen noodles. It was a pack of sausages that you can just cook in the pan. I think you also do it in the microwave. I did it in the pan. It was also 6 bottles of water, like maybe 1.5 liters, something like that. And rice. And it was like also instant rice. Everything you could do either in the microwave or in the pan. And so that was actually really convenient. Once I moved from there to this apartment, there was a bit of a gap that I had to reapply for the app. Oh, and I moved in the apartment, there wasn't Wi-Fi at first, and so that was a bit of an issue. But on the second day, I got Wi-Fi, and I had to reinstall the quarantine app. And once I did that, the next day they sent me more food, and this was supposed to last until the 13th. And so it was maybe 12 instant cups of rice, kimchi, different types of soup. And yeah, that's basically it. So that was my experience of getting to Taiwan to Korea. And definitely, if you have any questions about what it takes to get here, particularly if you're American, particularly if you're doing a long-term visa, just leave a comment comment below, and I'll get to it. And I'll probably do one more video just to wrap it all up. So yeah, that's it. I guess I see you in another 6 days. Peace.